discuss women's football in more detail. We have the former founder of Sports Khabri and an ardent women's football fan, Akshita Shukla. Hello, hi Akshita, welcome.
Hi, Shine. Thank you for having me on the channel.
Thank you so much. And we also have Sagar Birkar, who is an ardent women's football enthusiast who has been following the game since the past 5 years or so and has a very strong voice on the online football space in India. Welcome, Sagar.
Hey, thanks, Sai, and thanks for hosting this event, and thanks for having me.
Yes, let's just jump right into it. For the uninitiated, this discussion will mostly circle around the women's senior football team's upcoming AFC Asian Cup qualifiers campaign, which starts tomorrow. Just to give out all the details, India plays against who do we play against tomorrow? We'll be playing against Mongolia tomorrow, followed by two matches against Timor-Leste and Iraq. All three countries are ranked well below us. Mongolia is ranked 126th. Timor-Leste is ranked 158th, and Iraq, who we play on the 2nd of July, is ranked 173rd. Then we play Thailand on July 5th, and Thailand, of course, is ranked higher than us at 46th. India right now is ranked 70th in the FIFA women's rankings, and that is where I want to kickstart the conversation from. Guys, India currently sits at 78th according to the latest rankings. Its lowest ever position. We were at around 60 just a couple of years back, and now we are 70th now. So, where do you guys see this team going from here, especially with the important tournaments that are coming up next? I'll start off with Sagar.
Yeah, so to actually answer this question, we have to start a little back because we cannot observe the current ranking of 70 as something which is, just a year-wise ranking drop. It's been happening. There have been no. One of the key reasons is the coach changes. So I'll go to the main point that we didn't have a consistent NT coach for a couple of years. There were people who, from 2022, have been doing this job on and off. Even the current coach, Coach Crispin Chetri, is being appointed this year. Last year we had a lull. We didn't appoint a coach. We went with a different coach. So we have been playing it like tournament by tournament, which is not a good idea in terms of when you're competing in top tier tournaments like AFC, where you coach needs at least 2 years or 3 years of prep time to get familiarized with the players as well as really gauge the strength of the opposition. So it's been delayed. That's why our rankings have taken a hit. The squads have been changing, and the current avatar of the squad, as you know, has been. We are also still experimenting. So I wouldn't say that I'm surprised. Just that maybe from this tournament onwards, we should focus on arresting this decline.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely agreed on every point that you made there. Akshita, bringing you into this question, India has had a difficult couple of years in the women's game, right? And you have been following the team for quite a long time. Do you think so? Women's football, the women's team is also considered to be a formidable side, at least in Asia. It was the case for at least even a few years back, right? But the recent slump in form, do you see us slipping down a little bit there in terms of the perception overall of the Indian team as well? Because right now, our men's team, to be honest, our women's team, to be honest, is way better than the men's team in that regard, or at least it was.
Uh, Things were better, but as Shaggy pointed out, that there has been a lack of consistency. We saw that after Dennerby left us, and like after that, of course, there has been no consistency. Every coach comes in, is given a brief period of time. Even the coach knows that we are just going to be here for a specific period of time. Like even while the appointment is made, you don't know for how long the tenure is going to be. So in that case, how can you expect the coach also to bring out the best from these teams? Plus, again, there's also the fact that Crispin is also, like it's not Crispin's fault. I'm not pointing out any individual here, but he's also managing Odisha FC. Same was with Chauba Devi, right? We need to focus on Indian women's football in a way that we have a coach dedicated to the senior women's football team, overlooking what is happening with under 23, what is happening at at junior level teams, so that we have that standard set. We understand what kind of players can be brought to the senior team. The graph is set properly, but because there is the basic structure over here is not right, we are seeing the kind of drop in the performance of the players, right? If you watch a match live, you'll see the kind of basic things also that need to be worked on, right? We are of course rooting for our players. Everything is, as fans we are trying to do what we what needs to be done, but the responsibility is with the federation, also with the players, and we need to find a coach that can dedicate some amount of years with our women and see the kind, and like overlook basic technical things as well, because somewhere even that is lacking.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking about this dual role that we kind of have been seeing in Indian football, it's the same case with the men's team as well, right? With Manolo Marquez and now with Christian Chetty, it's the same thing with the women's team. Are you guys just as a personal opinion, are you guys in favor of this format? Because we at the bridge were discussing about this a little while back, and none of us could remember when this setup has worked for an international team in recent history at least. Sagar?
Yeah, so I don't recollect, but I did put it out as an info that, like, whether this was followed, and I did get some replies that there was an earlier, very early days, there was such arrangement. But when it comes to modern day football, right, I I am looking at it from, like, probably last 5 years, you would see the investment in coaches has exponentially increased. Take the example of Thailand. Thailand has a vision. Okay, they have worked with UEFA, and are one of the beneficiaries of the UEFA AFC, program, wherein they want to be inside the World Cup by 2026, 27, and for that they have got the right guy. Um, Coach Futoshi Ikeda has been an ex-Japanese coach who has done phenomenally well in the World Cup 2023. You can see what they are intending, right? And the statement is clear. When it comes to, so they are, what I'm trying to say is, it needs a clear vision. It cannot be makeshift arrangement that needs to be placed. However, saying that, I know that, also aware that women's football is not in a great shape, that we can, um, players don't get enough game time, coaches don't have enough, game time themselves to experiment. So, in case of India, which is very peculiar right now, this might be an advantage because Crispin Chaudhary just came out of the AFC, playing out the AFC, the first ever AFC Women's Champions League. So he's got a different experience now, and that could work in our favor. But the future, this cannot be an arrangement for us. We need to step out and see what the other countries in AFC are doing. Nepal has moved out. Bangladesh has moved out. They have gone with specific coaches. So, you know, it's. I don't mind Indian coaches or other coaches, but it should be a full time job, and hope we work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
like
also, I think,
yeah, go on.
sorry, just to add to this, even if there is no conflict of interest on the minds of the coaches, but kahin na kahin in the minds of players, or in the minds of the audiences, it stays that maybe some players are being benefited, some teams are being benefited. It's not that the IWL has 20 teams, right? There are limited number of teams, so we can maybe, like,
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the basics of the game. Just to correct that, in the younger players especially, you need a solid structure behind them. You need a solid, tactically astute guy who has the reins and can work with the players individually. When you are coaching a domestic team on the side, I'm guessing it's just common sense that you won't have that much time with players individually, right? So yeah, I get where both of you guys are coming from. Going back to the coaching situation, and one of you mentioned Thomas Dennerby, the seasoned Swedish coach who left the senior team just a little while back. Before Dennerby, Mimol Rocky and Sajid Dar also held stints. Uh, Mimol Rocky was also the first female coach, but the team didn't really show any tactical or structural progress. Uh, Thomas Dennerby, the Swedish head coach, who was the former head coach of the women's team, he has left a rich legacy with the team, right? What are your thoughts on the team and the players and the composition of the squad that he has left behind, Akshita?
Um, to be very honest, I still remember the last match that the team played against Dennerby, and the camera was focusing on him and his face. Like the way he looked at the time, it felt that he gave it his all, but he couldn't get the results that he was looking out for. And under him, you could see at least that there was some sort of a discipline in the team. Changes were happening. Again, the time was not given. Again, there were other things that were not going right. But perhaps if I'm not mistaken, the women also wanted him to stay, for some more time. They also, reached out to the federation asking more time from Denby with the team, but unfortunately, things didn't work out. But perhaps if he stayed, things would have been better. At least in my humble opinion, things would have been better if he was still here.
Yeah, Sagar, you want to add to anything to that?
What Akshata has said is several good points over there. But let me start with what Dennerby started at. Like, Dennerby started as a junior team coach, okay? And then he migrated to managing the seniors team. Now, what he did as a part of innovation was he brought the junior and senior teams together. There was we started talking about junior and senior teams being together in women's football first. You see a lot of these players who have come from the under 17 22 World Cup were coached by him. Okay. He was the person who actually was the first. He knew that the quality wasn't there, the girls didn't have the game time, right? But he still managed to get them to play in a disciplined way in the under 17 2022 World Cup in India. Not many would appreciate it, but gradually as he moved towards the senior women's 70 role, there was a transformation in Indian football saying that, hey, the camp in Chennai back in 2023, if I remember, was the first time that a like NT with a junior NT were playing together. So they got a lot of understanding from each other from the games, and this still continues. You see now, Coach Joachim is there. Coach Joachim is doing exactly the same. He's built up a very formidable juniors team, which will probably start shining in another this AFC or upcoming AFC tournaments. But to make something very clear, Dennerby has been doing this with limited resources, with the kind of challenges he faced. And he tried to cure the one big Achilles heel of Indian women's football, that is second half defending. We are not a very good second half defending team. Let's be honest. We do very good over a period of the first half. We look like we can defeat any team, and the second half we look like and we can lose against any team. So between these inconsistencies, he tried to fuse in some confidence in the players. The players really did well, and most of the I think the benefit has gone to players like Linda, Shilky, who have come through the ranks now in the 90 after giving performances in the under 17s and then subsequently in the two IWLs. So their progress is remarkable. So this has all started because in some point Dennerby started fusing all of the women's football together rather than keeping them disparate, as it happens in most of the cases in many countries.
It's strange that you mentioned that point because remember speaking to Dangmei Grace a few years back. I think Thomas Dennerby had just been given the charge of the reins of the Indian women's team, and she seemed very excited about the tactical side of the training that they were doing back then, and the result was there for everybody to see. But one not a black spot because it wasn't anybody's fault, but one moment which India would like to forget really quickly was the previous edition of the AC Women's Asian Cup, where the team had to pull out in 2022 after a COVID outbreak. And I remember Thomas Dennerby was very vocal with his criticism of the AFC for because of which the Indian team had to pull out. But this time around, it's a new team. It's a pretty young team as well. Christine Chetri, a new coach as well. Uh, do you feel India has a chance to finish in the top five Asian countries in by the end of 2025? Is that a serious possibility? Because that is a prerogative to qualify for the Asian Cup as well, right? Akshita.
Uh, to be very honest with you, considering how the the number of times the squads have been changed in the last many games. We don't even know what will be the starting lineup tomorrow. And I think maybe Shaggy will have a better idea on this. But, but like the kind of experiments that we have been making with the women's team, and the kind of, still unfortunately people are relying on the rankings. And I do feel that at this point, the rankings do not make any sense, because the teams who are ranked perhaps even like worse than what we are also performing better on their days. So as much as I would want us to be at the top, I still think that we are not very close.
Do you share that sentiment, Sagar?
Yeah, I mean, if you look, I mean, when we are talking about something like a top five in Asia, you should know whom we are competing against. We are competing against Japan, Australia, the two Koreas, and China. They run their women's program with an iron hand. Okay, so it's not that their schedules are pre-planned. Just for your information, Japan would go there. They would take the under 17, under 19 teams to USA for playing the under 17, under 19 teams to make them competitive. So when it comes to us, we have to take one step back, see where we are. Let's step back and say SAF. When we talk about AFC rankings, and when you come to SAF, right, you look at it, what Akshata was pointing to, there are around SAF itself, we are finding it difficult because SAF in men's and SAF in women's is completely different. It's not the same. Bangladesh and Nepal are not, they don't go by the rankings as Rakshita said. They are pretty good. Like they are. So if you look at it, Thailand had its prep match against Nepal because it knows that we are close to Nepal in the type of game that we play. So they could gauge what is our playing style by playing Nepal in the friendlies. So if you come to that, we are roughly around 13 right now in Asia, and for us to move ahead, what we have to look at is the one thing that has been not been done since 2022 is youth league setup for women. Okay, we haven't had that. Um, fortunately, the Indian Arrows was closed with a promise of a youth league, but it didn't never materialize. And that's where we do have a problem of game time, which Coach Anthony, when yesterday he was talking with Tarunava, he clearly mentioned that, hey, where do I get my game time for these players? And this is something which we have to address as basics and not before we start talking about being a top five, because I don't see us planning it until we rectify certain things that we are doing in women's football. Game time is like the modified IPL now since the past 2 years has given them a decent amount of game time, but it's still less. It's 14 games across, and the girls and the players' quality has started improving. So if you give them, let's say, 30 games or 25 games, you build that familiarity. Let the clubs build the squads, let the game times be more, and then we should see where we are going. Because unlike men's team, the women's team players do have a tendency to go abroad. They tend to. Manisha Kalyan is an example. She has gone abroad and has proved her in some leagues and now POK, and it's very interesting in that bit is that when we grow this to a literally competitive league of, let's say, having 20 more or 25 games, we don't know how our player pool will improve. Hopefully this is the first AFC that we should see a competitive IWL in somehow benefiting us. I hope so, because we have done the basics right with terms of first level tire. We have a second level tire where we are seeing players. One player made it from the second tire to the first tire. So we are seeing this stepwise incremental changes. But to be realistic, I would put it at 2031, where the Women's World Cup would be an expanded World Cup, where AFC would probably get 8 slots. 8 slots makes our lives easier. Being at 13, we can probably gauge that to be in top eight, and top five. That could be more realistic. Maybe we start at top 10. Let's keep that because we were inside nearly hovering around the top 10 earlier. And then we can take it up like how much, what needs to be incrementally done to really be a top five.
Yeah, yeah. It's so important that you mentioned the minutes, the amount of minutes that players get. So Just a little bit of trivia there. Even with the advent of the Indian Women's League, which started back in 2016, match exposure for women's footballers in India remains pretty limited. Players log around 1200 to 1600 minutes per season, which is far below the global standard, upwards of 18 to 20,000 minutes for top teams. So, Akshita, how do we rectify that? I know the IWL is getting a little better bit by bit with each passing season, but what other steps do you feel are necessary to address this issue?
I think maybe to begin with, we can start to have a proper calendar, and this is something that Shaggy has been pointing out for as long as I've known him. He always points it out. We keep on delaying the calendar. We don't know when, and whatever leftover time is there, we try to fit in the friendlies between that, or we just come up with a make anything random at that time. So if we have a proper calendar in place at the right time, we'll know what are the windows during which the IWL can operate, IWL2 can operate, the other other tournaments throughout the year, both national and international level can operate, and whatever time is left, there can be scope for us to figure out friendlies. Now again, people say that friendlies should be against bigger teams also. It's not just up to the AIFF, or it's not just up to our team. Like there is a process that has to be followed to organize friendlies as well. But as long as the proper calendar is missing, we do not have a structure to play around with, at least the scheduling.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Sagar, any thoughts on this? How do you see the women's team? I mean, the players getting more minutes in any given season.
So there are two ways, right? Like a couple of ways. I'm not only saying two, but you look at the internal and you look at the external. Okay, friendlies, it's there. But what about the internal tournaments? What about the state FAs? How they are going to organize their? None of the state FAs, barring CFA, I believe, who have a better calendar than the most. But many of the state FAs who run their women's league run in a fashion which is either 2 months or 3 months. So it doesn't really boil down to a good internal game time. Again, the senior women's NFC that is planned, it's like it's again a very it's every 2 days you have a game. So you just play in it on a continuous stretch. Then you go, then you play the final round on again and the same thing. So you don't really get the game time in that way. But so talk about this, and probably Akshata is right. I've been hearing this concern from when even in the state or this thing. It's very important that we do have uh, considering the major tournaments and what we are targeting. Let's say if you're targeting AFC, you need to plan your friendlies according to that. You can't be doing arbit AFCs and then arbit friendlies and then going around. Second part is we are in SAF. Now I'm hearing for the first time that the SAF clubs cup will take place this year. So that's one tournament that we should look at sending at least a couple of entries so that the top teams in India at least get a good decent amount of game time, and it also boils into good remuneration for the players, right? Like because with less game time they don't earn that much. It's not great, and with lesser game time they really don't earn that much. So more game time gets them more, makes them monetarily more stable, and that's where we need to head into. Be it the Club World Cup, be it the internal federation tournaments. So we don't have any cups, even like a Durand Cup or a Super Cup for women, right? Like we don't have anything internal except for the IWL. So though now the teams are there across two tiers, maybe just organize another Super Cup for them so that they can in a cup format and we can gauge the strength of the one tournament, one team against the other. It's already been done in the men's team. So it's just copying that and putting it in the women's game and expecting that at least basics of the game time can be corrected. And then later on, we can see if how much we can pull in the friendlies. That's again something which Akshata has correctly pointed out. The friendlies need to be effectively utilized. I've seen numerous friendly windows go away because squad was preparing or NYZ. But if you look at the top five, they are not leaving the friendly calendars. Right? They are utilizing against our opposition, and also the under 19s and under 17 need to go out. Like they can't be playing this in India. And at some point of time, we have to start thinking that how we are going to groom the next generation also for the 2031. Right now, people who are in the under 17 would be at the right age to play up to 2031 World Cup right now. So how do they get their game time? Yeah, so couple of things are there, and step by step, but yeah, hopefully we see those innovations coming in.
Like you said, it's just the basics that, I mean, the template is there. We've done it with men's football. We just need to efficiently replicate that same model with the women's game.
Not,
Coming back, yeah,
I'm sorry, I would slightly disagree on that, because there are things that are not working for men's football also in the country. So I would rather say that, take a lot of lessons from that and see what has actually worked for them, what hasn't, and then prepare the women's calendar.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
uh,
I,
Yeah, coming back to the Asian Cup qualifiers. So the Indian team has a youthful look to it, right? And uh, with a new coach in charge, quite a few new players in the team. The India team played a couple of friendlies against Uzbekistan recently, and they lost the matches, but they have been acclimatizing with the conditions in Thailand. So how do you see us faring against? Let's take these three matches first. Keep Thailand aside. The first three games against Mongolia, Timor-Leste, and Iraq were all ranked below us. What are your realistic expectations from these games, Akshata?
See, as I pointed out already, at this point, in my humble opinion, rankings do not play that kind of significance. So for me, every match is going to be extremely important for us, especially the second half, because we are known to, like the second half, the legs get tired, the inconsistencies show even more. And then Thailand will be a little trickier, because Thailand, as Shaggy pointed out, played against Nepal in the friendlies and won both the matches, if I'm not wrong. Right, Shaggy?
yeah, they won
So
2-0.
they are coming with a winning mentality. On the other hand, we are coming with, two back-to-back losses against Uzbekistan. So, the mindset is also going to play a crucial role. And only, like the top team will go to the next stage from the four teams. So that is going to be another challenge, where I feel that every match, as I said, please, if people are watching this, take away the rankings from your minds. Don't put that pressure. And yes, every match is going to be extremely crucial, and Thailand is going to be extra crucial, at least in my humble opinion.
Yeah, Sagar, anything you want to add?
So yeah, so most of the things that have happened is maybe as an AFC whole, we should say that we should put the rankings out of the spot, right? Like it's no longer that way. Okay, so we cannot stick to rankings because again, when it comes to, let's say, the rankings don't decide North Korea, right? Nobody, North Korea is a champ. You can't go. It's still playing the prelim rounds. So when it comes to many things, rankings are not a very good indicator. Having said that, the first three games are good for the build up. Okay, every tournament, in any sort of tournament, be it a men's game or women's game or any kind of tournament, be it the World Cup for any team, there are build up games. And since our build up to this tournament has been mostly experimental, we will come to know. I unfortunately did not see much of Mongolia, Timor Leste, and Iraq in my build up to this. But I'm definitely sure that a coach like Crispin Chetri would be looking at these three games and saying, like, what should I do to make the efficiency of my team better? Like what he has done with the squad is just cherry picked some of the best players from the IWL and put them into several positions and tried. To be honest, I don't know what is in his mind. Okay, I don't want to say that I can read coach's Chetty's mind, but at some point, I feel that he is very well aware that he has three games in hand where he can uh, see how his mental tactics around his key players, because he has taken a sizable amount of young players with him and Sabitski, which is quite good to see, who will play the AFC for the first time. And these guys could be just familiarizing with the competition. They need to get familiarized. Everybody needs to get familiarized. Even the fans need to get familiarized with how AFC is played, because we never had a tournament. Even I didn't have a tournament to watch as a proper AFC. So this is probably the first three games as a build-up. Let's just treat it as important games and see how the squad actually, you know, performs. on the field, which is what matters at the most, right? And let's not put a black mark on these performances, because I know there is a tendency that, hey, I know Uzbekistan was more experimental, because I think Crispin Sethi knew in a way that he will get a backlash for his Uzbekistan losses, but he still went ahead and experimented with it because he wanted the player pool. So the way amount of players we have, right, 28 of them, 28 we took, 25 we tried, and 23 we picked out of those. So you can see where the coach is going. He definitely has a plan, and probably that will show itself in these three games. But definitely, to echo what Akshata said, uh, it should be something that we should see the key deficiencies, addressing the key deficiencies that we have in our Indian women's team. Right? That should be the key case. We can just play to a certain level above our whatever we are now. Can't expect magic, but just keep like the fight till the end to see how certain times now it's very unpredictable in men's football, more unpredictable than people think in men's football. So it's anybody's game if on that day the one team has a bad day or one team has a good day. That's all. That's all.
Yeah, like you said, Crispin Chetri seems to have a preference towards bringing a few more young players in the national team setup. This India team, which will be competing tomorrow onwards, has an average age of just 23.6 years, which is fairly young. Uh, and it has a good balance of experience and youth as well. For the Malavika, there is Dangmi Grace. For the Priyadarshini, there is Anjuta Mang. For the Nirmala Devi, there is Preeti Devi. And like you said, against Uzbekistan, we tried out the young 18-year-old goalkeeper, Monalisa Moirangthem. And Crispin Chetri was quoted saying that I'm not scared to play with youngsters because this is how they are going to gain experience. This is verbatim what he said post the two matches. So yeah, Akshata, your thoughts on the young players that we have to keep an eye out for these four matches?
I mean, I'm kind of, if you to name exactly a specific players right now, I mean, I'm honestly going blank to who to name that I would be personally looking out for. But I'm excited to see Manisha Kalyan at least, and she was used in the creative also. Like I'm
She's been
excited that
in terrific form as well.
yeah, she's been in a terrific form, and I hope that she's been given a lot more playing time because in last couple of matches where we saw her, fortunately, I didn't. If I'm not mistaken, she didn't get the kind of playing time that was at least that I expected from her. But the mix is going to be interesting. So let's see, like how that pans out.
Sagar, any particular players that you are keeping an eye out for?
So, I mean, Akshata has pretty much echoed Manisha Kalyan's name. Manisha has been doing great for India, right? There is, I mean, the single player who's carrying the banner of Indian football abroad is Manisha Kalyan. Let's be honest,
Yeah.
there is nobody else. I mean, whatever we make out of it, she has been for the past 2 years. She has shown that how Indian football can be taken. She has given a roadmap for everybody to follow. So that's the greatness of her. But when you come to the second level, right, the people who are coming out new, a very interesting thing is like you should watch Linda. Uh, so she has been phenomenal for Odisha FC for 2 seasons. Unfortunately, last season was not that great, but for a 20 for a under 17 22 MVP, that kind of growth she has in Indian football. I hope Crispin starts her, and she is going to face a tough competition from some of the senior players for her spot. So that's going to be very interesting. And in the middle of the park, I definitely would love to see Shilki. My preference is to play her in the center too, because uh, the way she has grown inside the league from a 22 is quite appreciate the kind of player she has become. It'll be very interesting to see how we play. But the big problem that Indian football has never addressed is, how do you replace a tall top player like Indumati? Okay, her loss, I have not seen an out and right player probably who can replace the skill and vision of Hindu. So it'll be very interesting to see how we actually line up. But definitely these three are the top three players. There are a couple of defensive side players. Nirmala Devi is one thing that I want to watch out, Purnima and Nirmala, because I was expecting Asha Lata Devi to make it, but surprisingly the preference has gone to Nirmala and Purnima, and it's to some amount of good credit to Setu FC who have found these players and put them in the right half of in the center of their defense. And I don't know. I mean, that they find themselves in the national team now. So this is something which they have kept out Asha Lata Devi. So I don't know. To be honest, this is like a very surprising thing for me, and that's it's up to uh, Chris and how he wants to play this squad. And I think the reason why these players are there is specifically to form certain formations that he does.
Yeah, yeah. That's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk to you guys about as we look forward to the upcoming games that the women's team will be playing. Before we leave, before we end the session, guys, I know this part you both of you will be hating this part, but still I have to go ahead and ask you this: your predictions for the match tomorrow. I know it's a difficult call to make, but we still go with our gut.
I don't know why a goalless draw is coming to mind. Let's see. The gut is saying that I don't think that would be the result though, but
Okay, okay, Sagar.
Yeah, I think we will win it. I don't ask me the margin because from the kind of experimentation that I've seen, I don't know what we're gonna play tomorrow. If we had been doing some very steady NT business, but just having a look at the tournament that we have been playing, we did well against Jordan in the Pink Ladies Cup. And subsequently, Uzbekistan was again a very experimental side. We lost to teams which we are expected to lose against, just let's say that. So we are expected to win against Mongolia. We are doing expected things. Okay, so that's where I expect them to actually get past Mongolia. These three nations. And at this point of time, I would take like a win first up because it's the first match of the tournament. Start the tournament on a good note, and let's carry that momentum forward. That's all.
Absolutely. It's so important to start a qualifying campaign on a strong footing. So that makes tomorrow's match all the more important. Thank you so much, guys, for joining in, for giving your time to the bridge. It was fantastic talking to you guys. Uh, Thank you so much for coming on board.
thank you for having us.
Thanks, Anne, for having us. Thanks for hosting this event. Thanks, Akshat.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
and yeah, for all of those those of you who are watching this, please keep tracking all news and updates around Indian sports, including Indian football, on thebridge.in, and keep following us across our social media pages. This is Shan Chatterjee signing off from our YT Live today. Thank you, guys. Thank you once again.